My sister asked me for $50,000 for the boys. Then my nephew whispered, Mom said you don't love us, and I realized the money was never really for them. I was standing in my sister's kitchen, trying not to stare at the stack of unopened envelopes beside her sink. They weren't normal letters. They were the kind with red stamps and bold print showing through the little plastic windows. The kind of mail people hide under magazines or shove into drawers because looking at it makes the problem real. My sister saw my eyes drift toward them and pushed the whole pile into a drawer with her hip. Don't start, she said. I've had a week. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because Sandra had been having a week for as long as I could remember. When she forgot to pick up her kids from practice, she had a week. When she overdrew her account, she had a week. When she bought a new phone and then asked our mom to cover her power bill, she had a week. When anyone questioned her, she cried, and somehow the conversation always turned into everyone apologizing to her. That was how our family worked. Sandra felt everything loudly. I handled everything quietly. She could fall apart in the middle of the room, and everyone would rush to hold her up. If I got upset, I was told to be patient, to be mature, to understand that Sandra was overwhelmed. I used to think that was normal. She told me to sit down at the kitchen table. Her apartment smelled like vanilla candles, takeout, and that sour smell of laundry that had been sitting in the washer too long. There were backpacks on the chairs, soccer cleats by the back door, and a cracked tablet on the counter that belonged to her youngest son. Matthew and Joshua were still at school. That was why she had asked me to come over in the middle of the day. She said she wanted to talk about their future, and because I loved those boys more than almost anything, I came. I thought maybe it was about school. Matthew had been talking about engineering, then trade school, then video game design, depending on the week. Joshua wanted to be a veterinarian because he cried every time he saw a hurt animal online. I figured maybe Sandra wanted help planning for camps or tutoring or college savings. I sat down, pushed one iced coffee toward her and asked, "So what's going on?" She didn't touch the coffee. She opened a folder on the table. Inside were printed bank pages, rental listings, car payment notices, and a few handwritten notes. It looked organized at first glance, but when I looked closer, nothing connected. Numbers circled in different colors. Rent prices from apartments she couldn't afford. A car estimate. A list of expenses that had no totals. Then she looked me in the eye and said, "I need $50,000. For a second, I genuinely thought I had misheard her. I said, "50,000? She nodded like she had asked me for a ride to the store. "It's for the boys," she said. I laughed once. Not a real laugh. More like my body rejected the sentence before my brain could process it. Her face hardened immediately. "I'm serious," she said. "Don't make me feel stupid." "I'm not trying to," I said. "I just need to understand. What exactly is the $50,000 for?" She leaned back and crossed her arms. "Everything is expensive now. You know that. The boys are getting older. Matthew needs his own space. Joshua needs new clothes every 5 minutes. I'm behind on some things because Daniel has been inconsistent again. I need stability." That was her word. Stability. It sounded responsible until I realized she had not answered the question. I looked at the folder again. "Okay, but what are the actual expenses?" She let out a sharp breath. "Some of it would catch up bills," she said. "Some would go toward a better apartment. Some would help with my car because I can't keep driving something unreliable with 2 kids. And I need a cushion so I'm not constantly drowning." I stared at her. Not because I didn't care. That was the worst part. I cared so much that my chest hurt. But the way she said it, like my savings were just sitting there waiting for her emergency, made something in me go cold. I said, "Sandra, are you asking to borrow this or asking me to give it to you?" Her eyes flicked away. "I need help," she said. "That's not an answer." She slapped the folder closed. "Why are you acting like a bank?" "Because you're asking me for $50,000. Her eyes filled with tears so quickly it felt rehearsed, but maybe that's unfair. Maybe she really was that desperate. I don't know. That is the part people don't understand about family. Someone can manipulate you and still be genuinely drowning. Both things can be true, and that makes it harder. She said, "You have it." I hated how simple she made it sound. I did have savings. Not rich people savings. Not money I could throw around without feeling it. I had emergency savings. Retirement savings. A house repair fund. Money I built slowly because I said no to myself over and over. I drove an older car. I packed lunch. I bought my townhouse before prices got completely insane and then treated every extra payment like a promise to my future self. My family called me good with money, but they said it like I had been born with a secret advantage instead of discipline. Sandra knew that. Our mother knew that. Everyone knew that. And somehow, that made my money feel less mine. I said, "I'm not giving you $50,000. Her face changed. It wasn't just hurt. It was shock, then anger, then something almost accusing. "Wow," she said quietly. "So you really don't care what happens to your nephews?" That hit exactly where she wanted it to. Don't do that, I said. Do what? Use them like that. She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. I'm not using them. They're my kids. I'm trying to keep a roof over their heads. You have a roof over their heads. For now. Then tell me what's actually going on. I just did. No, I said. You gave me a panic cloud. Not a plan. That was probably too harsh, but I was scared too. Scared by the amount. Scared by the unopened bills. Scared by how easily she expected me to hand over the kind of money that would take years to rebuild. She wiped her face and said, "You don't trust me." I was quiet for a second. Then I said, "Not with $50,000. She stared at me like I had slapped her. Then came the crying. Not soft crying. Not embarrassed crying. Big, shaking, wounded crying. She said I judged her. She said I thought I was better than her. She said I had no idea what it was like to be a single mother. She said I got to live in my quiet little townhouse and save money because I didn't have kids taking everything from me. Then she said the sentence that made me grab my purse. You get to be selfish because you never had a family of your own. I froze. She knew exactly what she had done. I saw it in her face. For half a second, even she looked sorry. But she did not take it back. I don't have children. It wasn't one dramatic decision. Life just moved that way. Relationships ended. Time passed. Then suddenly I was in my late 30s, smiling at baby showers and telling people I was fine because what else do you say? I poured a lot of that unused love into Matthew and Joshua. Birthdays, school plays, emergency pickups, summer camps, dentist bills, boring fundraisers, all of it. When Joshua was little, he called me his other mom, and Sandra used to laugh like it was cute. Now she made it sound like my love for them was fake because I had limits. I told her I needed to go. She said, "Of course you do." I walked to my car, shut the door, and cried in the parking lot for 20 minutes. I wasn't crying because I thought I was wrong. I was crying because someone I loved had reached inside me and pressed the oldest bruise she could find. By the next morning, my mother called. I knew before I answered that Sandra had already told her version. Mom didn't even say hello properly. She just sighed and said, "Your sister is devastated." I closed my eyes. "I'm sure she is." She said, "You embarrassed her." She asked me for $50,000, Mom. For the boys. No. She said it was for the boys. That doesn't mean it was. My mom got quiet in that disappointed way she has. The kind that used to make me fold immediately. "She is your sister," she said. "If you can help, you should help. Are you giving her money? That's not fair. Your father and I don't have that kind of money." "Neither do I." "But you do." There it was. I sat at my kitchen table, staring at my own neat little stack of mail. Mortgage statement. Electric bill. Insurance. Normal adult things I paid because I had planned for them. And somehow I was being treated like the selfish one for not turning my life into Sandra's safety net. "No, Mom," I said. "I have money I earned by saying no to myself for years. That is not the same as extra money." She said I sounded cold. I said, "Maybe I sound tired." She hung up soon after that. A few hours later, Sandra texted me a picture of Joshua's shoes. The front of one sneaker had a hole near the toe. Under the photo, she wrote, "This is what your boundary looks like." I stared at that message until my phone screen went dim. That one almost broke me. I wanted to transfer her money just to make the feeling stop. Not 50,000, but something. Anything. I wanted to prove I was not the monster she was trying to paint me as. Then I looked at the photo again. Joshua's shoe had a hole. Sandra had gone to a spa weekend 3 weeks earlier. I knew because she posted pictures from the hotel pool with a caption about choosing peace. I put the phone down. That Friday, I picked the boys up from school like I usually did once a month. Sandra didn't cancel, which surprised me. Maybe she forgot. Maybe she still needed the break. Maybe she wanted to see if I would feel guilty in person. Matthew got in the front seat because he was old enough now and always acted like it was a privilege he had earned. Joshua climbed into the back with his backpack half open and immediately started telling me about a kid in his class who had eaten 2 packets of ketchup on a dare. I took them to a small diner near their school. Same one we always went to. Joshua ordered pancakes even though it was dinner. Matthew picked at his fries and kept checking his phone. Something was off. I asked, "You okay?" He shrugged. Joshua looked at him, then looked down. I kept my voice light. "Did something happen at school?" Matthew shook his head. We sat there for a while with the clinking plates and the smell of coffee around us. Then Matthew said, so quietly I almost missed it, "Mom said you're mad at us." My heart dropped. Joshua stopped cutting his pancakes. I said, "What?" Matthew kept looking at his fries. "She said you're mad because we need stuff." I felt something hot rise behind my eyes. "No," I said immediately. "No. I am not mad at you. I could never be mad at you over adult money stuff." Joshua's lip trembled. "Mom said maybe we can't come over anymore." I wanted to scream. I wanted to drive straight back to Sandra's apartment and ask her what kind of mother uses her kids like chess pieces. But I didn't. I reached across the table and touched Joshua's hand. I love you both, I said. That does not change because adults are arguing. Matthew looked up then. He looked relieved, but also embarrassed, like he hated needing to hear it. That night, after I dropped them off, I sat in my car outside Sandra's building and watched her porch light flicker. I knew then that I could not give her cash. Not because I didn't love the boys. Because I did. If I gave Sandra $50,000, I wouldn't be saving Matthew and Joshua. I would be teaching her that the fastest way to access my money was through their pain. So I made a different plan. The next morning, I called a financial advisor I had used before. Then I called a lawyer because I wanted it clean. I asked about setting up protected education accounts for both boys. Accounts Sandra couldn't drain. Accounts Daniel couldn't touch. Accounts meant for tuition, training programs, books, housing, whatever they needed when they were old enough. I started with $10,000 each. That was still a lot of money. More than anyone in my family deserved to criticize. It made my stomach twist when I approved the transfer. But it also felt different from handing Sandra cash. It felt like putting the money where she claimed it needed to go. Then I paid for Joshua's new shoes. I paid for Matthew's laptop repair through the school. I paid the summer camp deposits directly to the program office. No cash. No vague cushion. No apartment upgrade. Just the boys. When I called Sandra to tell her, I thought maybe some part of her would be relieved. I was wrong. You did what? She snapped. I set up education accounts for them. Silence. Then she said, are you kidding me? No. So instead of helping me now, you locked money away to make yourself feel important? That's not what this is. That is exactly what this is. You're trying to make me look like a bad mother. I leaned against my kitchen counter and tried to stay calm. You asked me for money for the boys. I'm helping the boys. That's not what I asked for. I know. The silence after that was ugly. Then she said, you always do this. Do what? Act like you're better than me because you use a spreadsheet. I laughed once, but there was no humor in it. Sandra, your child had a hole in his shoe. I was handling it. You sent me the picture to guilt me. Because you needed to see what your no meant. No, I said. You needed me to feel responsible for something you ignored. She hung up. I knew it wasn't over. By dinner, the family group chat exploded. Sandra wrote a long message about how I was weaponizing money and humiliating her. She said I had decided I was the real parent because I had more savings. She said I was controlling and cruel, and that I would rather create accounts for the future than help her keep the boys stable now. Aunt Linda jumped in first. I always knew Jennifer thought she was better than everyone. Then my cousin Ashley wrote, single mothers need compassion, not judgment and paperwork. My mother added, this family used to take care of each other. I stared at the screen, waiting for one person to ask why Sandra needed $50,000. Waiting for someone to ask where Daniel's child support was. Waiting for someone to ask how a bigger apartment and a better car became my responsibility. No one did. My father texted me privately. I understand your side. But maybe smooth things over with your mother. That one hurt in a different way. Dad knew. He always knew more than he said. He was quiet, practical, conflict avoidant. He could see the fire spreading and still ask me to move the furniture instead of telling the person with the match to stop. I typed and deleted 5 different responses in the group chat. Finally, I wrote one message. I will not give Sandra cash. I will continue helping Matthew and Joshua directly. Anyone who feels I am not doing enough is welcome to give Sandra their own money. Then I muted the chat. For 2 weeks, Sandra cut me off from the boys. No calls. No weekend visit. No funny videos from Joshua. No random texts from Matthew asking if he could send a package to my house because his mom kept losing mail. I told myself not to panic. I told myself she was angry and trying to punish me. I told myself this was exactly why I had to hold the line. But the house felt different without them. Their cereal was still in my pantry. Joshua's favorite blanket was folded over the back of my couch. Matthew's old hoodie was hanging by the door because he always forgot something when he came over. I missed them so much it felt physical. Then one night, an unknown number called. I almost ignored it. When I answered, Matthew whispered, Aunt Jennifer? I sat up. Matthew? Are you okay? I'm at my friend's house. I'm sorry. For what? He was quiet for a second. Then he said, Mom said you're not helping because we're not your real kids. I pressed my hand over my mouth. There are moments when anger is so big it becomes silent. That was one of them. I wanted to say things a child should never have to hear about his own mother. I wanted to tell him exactly what was happening. I wanted to defend myself. Instead, I swallowed it. Listen to me, I said. You and Joshua are not responsible for this. You didn't do anything wrong. I love you. That has not changed. He sniffed. She said you're trying to control us. I'm trying to make sure you have something for your future. Can we still come over sometime? His voice cracked on sometime, and that nearly broke me. Always, I said. Whenever your mom allows it, my door is open. He said okay. Then he whispered, Joshua misses you too. After we hung up, I sat on my bedroom floor and cried quietly. I didn't cry because I regretted saying no. I cried because Sandra had found the cruelest possible way to punish me, and she was making her own children carry the message. 3 days later, Sandra called. Her voice was different. Flat. Tired. No performance. No outrage. For a second, I almost didn't recognize her. She said, "My car is getting repossessed." I didn't say anything. "I'm behind on 2 credit cards," she continued. "And rent. Not all of it, but enough." The bigger apartment wasn't just an idea. I already applied. I put down a deposit. I closed my eyes. "You did that before talking to me? I thought you would help. You assumed I would give you $50,000? I thought if you knew it was for the boys you would." There it was again. For the boys. I asked, "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" "Because you would have said no." "Sandra," I said, "I did say no." She started crying, but this time it wasn't the loud kind. It sounded smaller. More tired. Maybe more real. She said she was drowning. She said Daniel's payments came late when they came at all. She said our parents had stopped helping as much because they were stretched thin. She said she was tired of being the screw-up. She said every time she tried to fix one thing, 3 more things fell apart. For the first time in a long time, I felt sorry for her without feeling responsible for saving her. That sounds simple, but it wasn't. Because I loved my sister. I still do. There are things only she knows about me. There are childhood memories where she protected me. There are old versions of her that I still miss. I don't think she woke up one day and decided to become this person. But pain does not give someone the right to empty everyone around them. I told her I would pay for a non-profit credit counseling appointment. I would help her organize the bills. I would watch the boys if she picked up extra shifts or had interviews. I would continue paying the boys' school costs directly when I could. But I would not give her cash. She went quiet. Then she said, "So you'll help me only if I do it your way?" "No," I said. "I'll help the boys no matter what. I'll help you if you want to fix the problem. I won't help you hide from it." She hung up. A week later, my mother called me crying. Sandra's car had been repossessed. Mom said, "I hope you're proud of yourself." I was standing in the grocery store, holding a bag of apples, when she said it. For a second, I felt like a child again. Like I was supposed to drop everything and fix the feeling in my mother's voice. But I didn't. I said, "I'm not proud. I'm sad. But I'm not ashamed." She went silent. I said, "There is a difference." She told me I had become hard. Maybe I had. Or maybe I had finally stopped being soft in places people kept stepping on. Sandra ended up not getting the bigger apartment. She moved into a smaller one across town. My parents helped with the deposit. Aunt Linda, who had called me selfish in the group chat, gave her money too. Funny how quickly everyone's opinion got quieter when the help had to come from their own accounts. Ashley stopped posting inspirational quotes about compassion after Sandra asked her for money directly. My dad still didn't say much, but he came by one Saturday to fix a loose cabinet in my kitchen. While he was tightening the hinge, he said, without looking at me, "You did the right thing." I waited. Then he added, "I should have said that sooner." That meant more than I expected. Not enough to erase everything, but enough to loosen something in my chest. Sandra didn't apologize. Not really. She texted me one day and asked if I could take the boys for the weekend because she had to work. No mention of the fight. No mention of what she had said to them. No thank you for the accounts or the shoes or the camp deposits. Just, "Can they come over Friday?" I stared at the message for a long time. Then I wrote back, "Yes." When the boys came over, Joshua ran into my house like nothing had changed. He hugged me so hard his backpack hit my ribs. He smelled like grass and pencil shavings and the cheap blue sports drink he always begged for. Matthew came in slower. He was getting tall, old enough to understand too much and young enough to still want someone to tell him it was okay. He put his bag down by the door and looked around like he was checking whether he was still welcome. I said, "I bought the cereal you like." He smiled a little. Joshua spent the evening building a ridiculous pillow fort in my living room. Matthew pretended he was too old for it, then ended up helping anyway. We ordered pizza. We watched a movie none of us paid attention to. For a few hours, everything felt normal. After Joshua fell asleep on the couch, Matthew came into the kitchen while I was rinsing plates. He said, "Did you really make accounts for us?" I turned off the water. "Yes. Mom said it's so you can control us when we're older." I dried my hands slowly. "No," I said. "It's so you have choices when you're older." He looked down. "Do we have to use it for college?" "No. It can be for college, training, books, housing during school. We'll figure it out when the time comes. It's for your future, not mine." He nodded, but he didn't leave. Then he said, "Thanks for not disappearing." That was the moment I almost broke again. I wanted to tell him I would never disappear. But adults say things like never all the time, and kids eventually learn that life is messier than promises. So I told him the truth I could keep. I will always try to be someone you can call. He hugged me then. Awkwardly, because 13-year-old boys hug like they are embarrassed by their own arms. but he held on longer than usual. After they went home that Sunday, the house felt too quiet. I picked up Joshua's blanket. I found one of Matthew's socks under the couch. I washed the plates from breakfast and stood in my kitchen with my hands on the counter, staring at nothing. Then I sat on the floor and cried. Not dramatic crying. Not the kind where you want someone to hear you. Just tired, quiet crying. Because I love them. I love my sister too, even when I don't like her. That is the part people want to simplify. They want me to either be the generous aunt who saves everyone or the cold sister who let Sandra fail. But the truth is uglier and more human than that. I can love Sandra and still not trust her with money. I can feel sorry for her and still refuse to be used. I can protect Matthew and Joshua without pretending their mother's choices are mine to repair. The accounts are set up now. Sandra knows she can't access them. She hates it. My mother still thinks I made everything worse. Aunt Linda has stopped commenting. Ashley is suddenly very busy whenever money comes up. My father is trying, in his quiet way, to act like he was always on my side. Sandra is still struggling, but she is also making changes she probably should have made years ago. She sold some things. She picked up more hours. She finally went to the credit counseling appointment after pretending for 3 weeks that she didn't need it. She didn't tell me how it went, but she didn't cancel the second one. I count that as something. As for me, I am learning that boundaries do not feel peaceful at first. Sometimes they feel cruel. Sometimes they feel like sitting alone while everyone calls you selfish. Sometimes they look like a child asking if you still love him because an adult dragged him into a fight he never should have known about. But I know what would have happened if I gave Sandra that money. It would have disappeared into late bills, a car she couldn't afford, an apartment she had no business applying for, and a little cushion that would be gone by Christmas. Then the next emergency would come, and the boys would be used again, because it worked the first time. So no, I didn't give my sister $50,000. I gave her son something she could not spend. And maybe that makes me controlling. Maybe it makes me cold. Maybe there is a version of this where a better sister would have handed over the money and trusted her. But I keep thinking about Joshua's shoes. Matthew's voice on that phone. The way my mother said, but you do, like my savings became family property the second Sandra wanted them. Everyone wanted me to be generous. Nobody wanted to admit why my generosity needed locks. So now I'm asking honestly, because some days I still don't know how to feel about it. Was I wrong for refusing to give my sister the money, even though I protected it for her kids instead?